Join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Ori?
Here.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Here.
Mr. Ping?
Here.
All right, before we do anything, we need a motion to amend the agenda to add a resolution. It's resolution that is 13B, and also a motion to go into an executive session.
I'll move to add the resolution and to move into executive session.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps? Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Assistant City Manager, Corey Wright, Clerk of Council, Misty Brents, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, City Solicitor, Joe Braun, our Public Works Director, Scott Wisby. Y'all maybe haven't seen him before. Here he is. Safety Director, Sue Madsen, and Lieutenant Corbett is here as our Sergeant-at-Arms. Also with us are former council members Pat Mays and Todd Osborne. I think that's it. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. And first we have the sad event of the evening.
It is the sad event of the year. I'm the photographer.
So, for those that you don't know, this is Dawn Everett. This is her family. And so I just want to say, I think everyone knows I'm a little bit passionate about the city, and I truly do enjoy coming here every day, most days. But one of the biggest things about this is the fact that these people in this building, I spend more time with these people in this building than my own family. I truly mean that. But these are some of the finest people you will ever meet. And that is not ever more present than it is with Dawn. So I've been here for 8 years. Dawn here has been here for 12. And it is one thing to be a good person. Dawn and I like to get here early at 7:30 on the button on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The bell rings. And that is my international sign at 7:30 that I can come up and talk sports with Dawn. We both secretly share a passion. We both cannot stand Xavier basketball. So we secretly pick on Xavier basketball. And when I first got here, I was wondering why whenever we do really nice luncheon events. We all bring in our own stuff and we do luncheons in here. Misty organizes. I'm always wondered, they were always organized on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And I always wondered why. And I figured out because we never wanted to do them on the 2 days that Dawn wasn't here. Not only because she's an incredible person, everybody enjoys being around her because she's a heck of a cook. And she always brought in such wonderful things. So Dawn as a person goes beyond saying, I don't have enough time. It is an honor to get to know her, but it's also, I consider her a very good friend of mine. She's very supportive. She knows what's going on. She knows when there's stuff going on in the city and maybe we're all dealing with that. She's very sensitive. Her husband I've had a chance to meet a couple times and is just as top-notch as Dawn. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet you guys, but I've heard about you all. Every one of you, the grandkids, the whole deal, the baseball games and all the fun things that you guys get to do. And I can't imagine how nice it is to get to do that with Dawn. Dawn, the employee. So customer service is something I think is dying out in public service. It's something that after 37 years, I think customer service is ultra important. We in this building, and I'm glad to know that Corey and Mark and the new people we've brought on, and certainly Sue, understand that our residents are not just the people that pay our salary. It is truly a customer service base. That tone by Dawn is first notch. If you've ever seen the final day to turn in your income tax, there's a line of people because it's not just that they know they can do it. They know Dawn will sit here forever and help them fill out their tax reforms. The door stays open. Dawn will stay as long as it is. That is the type of customer service that I wish every resident could see. that what goes on in this building, and it's not always pleasant. You certainly, and her tone, it never changes. The way Dawn is at 7:30 when we're bad mouthing Xavier basketball to where it is when she leaves, it never changes. And she really and truly is just a stupendous person. So Dawn, this is only part of your day, but so you got it. I want to give you this. This is in recognition of your service, of 12 years of service. Corey's teaching us about bling from his former place, so we're all of our stuff's getting a little fancier, but I really mean it, Dawn. It's been a privilege. It really has been a privilege. We're all having a big lunch with Dawn this week, so it's not goodbye, but I just want to tell you, you will not meet a better group of people who care about the residents. What we do, from shut-offs to taxes to the one of the things I most respect about Dawn, the way she understands and appreciates the information she has for tax returns. She's very protective of it. If I was a resident of the city of Loveland and I knew that tax information, it couldn't be in better hands. She's very respectful of it, and no matter how much they push her, she always is as friendly, as smile as can be. So as a city council, you could not have a better person, and she leads that by example with Ann and everyone else that she gets to work with. So I'm going to step away because there's more coming. So Mark is.
Well, I don't know if there's much left to say after Dave kind of hit it on the head, but I just remember when I got here in late 2020, and the whole organization is great and very friendly, but Dawn was the person that made me feel the most at home. Even in my first council meeting that I was here, and of course I brought my family and my 2 boys were here, and they didn't know what to think of it. They were a little nervous with all these people around. Dawn was here and actually made them feel welcome too, and introduced herself. And that was just something that just really got to me. She's willing to be a nice person to even complete strangers, adults, kids, whoever. So I'm certainly going to miss Dawn. And on the bright side, my kid and her grandson are on opposite baseball teams, so at least I'll be able to see her on the diamond and
We'll continue.
keep that going.
Yes.
A very friendly rivalry, by the way. So I just want to say thanks from the bottom of my heart, Dawn. Thank you.
We have to. Okay, there's timing. We had all timed out, Dawn, and I jumped in. I think it's your turn now.
It is my turn now.
Yes. I'm
Alright.
sorry.
Thank you very much. You guys are so kind, and thank you for the gift. That was very thoughtful of you. And every time I look at it, I'll think of the city of Loveland and City Hall and all you wonderful people. So, Mayor Bailey and City Council, I want to first say I would like to thank you for the opportunity that I've had to work for the city of Loveland for the past 12 years, mainly in the fun tax department. It's been very rewarding, though sometimes a very taxing experience. Working in the tax department has helped me grow in my communication and my conflict resolution skills. In my opinion, I believe that this beautiful, quaint city of Loveland is one of the most prestigious cities to live in. And a large part of that is due to the dedication and the care of our mayor, our city council, and the city employees. So thank you for all that you do. Lastly, I'd like to thank our wonderful city manager, Dave Kennedy, for the masterful way that he runs the city of Loveland every day. He's always here bright and early in the morning, and his door is always open to talk with. You have truly been a model to me and a pleasure to work with you under your leadership. I will miss your stories. I will miss especially talking about our wonderful team, the UC Bearcat basketball team. And also I will miss being with you and working alongside you. I'm looking forward to retirement. It's a new adventure. It's going to be very exciting. But one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most is spending much more time with my remarkable and retired husband, Greg, back over here. And also with my other family members, my daughter, Amanda, and her family, and then my son, and he just recently got engaged, so his fiance, Nina. So it's going to be fun just to be able to hang with them a lot. But the most important thing is my two special and sweet grandsons, Peter and Leo. They are not here tonight because, as Mark said earlier, they're playing baseball. But because of the city of Loveland, my life has been enriched and blessed. And I just want to thank each one of you for that.
Hold on, Don.
Xavier T-shirt,
Fishing chair.
Maybe.
Baseball.
jersey.
We'll get it.
So this is a small token. It's for gardening.
Oh,
Just one of your pleasures.
Oh my
So
goodness.
you
Gardening
just
bench.
I thought it was
sit
just
on it or flip it and kneel.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
Thank you.
Or yeah, turkey.
Oh, thank you.
Putting her to work.
Everything that I need.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, very, very
Yes, and
nice.
he's got her plaque on the bench with her name and
Oh,
everything.
and I don't have a working apron, so
Of course you do. Now you do.
wow. And my favorite color, green. Oh, cheers and oh, to put all my tools in.
Yeah.
Wow, I am going to be a top A gardener now. A master gardener is what I'll become.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Don, can we get a picture with you?
Oh, sure.
Council member.
Go Bearcats.
Yes. Anywhere you want.
Mr. Wisdom. Holy
Right? Sure. Yep. So we're going to go on the other end of retirement. This is Jake Stalls. He comes from Union Township, where he worked several seasons as a seasonal employee. Was a part seasonal employee, correct? Brand new add-on. We're fortunate to have two new Public Works employees. We just had two retirements ourselves. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to change these seats really fast. So we've got two great employees. I don't want to give up his history too much because I have a feeling Sue may want to steal him from me one day, but I'll let him tell it. If you don't mind.
So you guys got my name. It's Jake. I live and grew up in Bethel, and I studied criminal justice at the University of Cincinnati. And then after that, I went through the police academy, decided that wasn't my ideal role, and thought I'd continue to work, hopefully in physical labor, like I did at Union Township for the past 4 years to put myself through school. I enjoy it. It's fairly low stress, mentally at least. So I'm just getting started. Maybe someday I'll retire from it.
All right. So we'll do your oath, and the reason, Jake, we have you here is because otherwise we don't get to meet you when you're out working. So we like to know who our employees are. We'd like you to know who we are, and also we like to do this in front of people here and on that are watching, so that you understand that what sort of the city expects from you. Because when you're out there working, you have our logo on your clothing. You're representing the city. It's a small city. People see you. And we just sort of wanted to impress upon you how important you are to us, and how important it is to us that you represent the city well. So this is sort of the reason we bring you here tonight. But we also mostly wanted to meet you,
All right.
and want to welcome you to the city. So now
Thank
we're going to do your oath. You ready?
Yeah.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jacob Stoltz,
Solemnly swear that I will
solemnly swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Loveland,
of the City of Loveland,
and will obey the laws thereof,
will obey the laws thereof,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of Public Works Maintenance Worker
the duties of Public Works Maintenance Worker
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard, Jake.
Glad you're with us.
Congratulations. Welcome. Yeah. Thanks, Jake.
All right. Open forum. We have no one signed up for open forum. Review and approval of minutes from the June 14th, 2022 council meeting. Are there any additions, changes to those minutes? We have a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Move to approve.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Blair?
Yep.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Abstain.
You can
Vice Mayor
just
Phelps?
explain the meeting.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't on council last meeting.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
I'm going to also abstain due to absence.
Very good. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right. We have a public hearing. Before we open that public hearing, Mr. Medler, do you want to go ahead and explain what I believe you had a memorandum later on in the minutes in the agenda, but might as well do that now.
Okay, absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Each year, the city, as well as other governmental entities throughout Ohio, is required to prepare a tax budget for the following calendar year and hold a public hearing. The budget must then be submitted to the Hamilton County Auditor prior to July 20th in order to receive the city's share of local government fund revenue disbursement. The format of the tax budget before you is standard for all communities and reflects 2 years of actual financial data, an estimate for the current year 2022, and a general projection for 2023. The tax budget does not contain the amount of detail that goes into the operating budget in the capital improvement program. It only includes information for funds that receive property taxes, that being the general fund and fire and EMS levy funds. To secure the city's share of local government funding, it is recommended that City Council adopt the 2022 tax budget. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Medler? Yes.
First off, I want to thank you for taking the time yesterday to have a conversation with me about this. And can you explain, in general, the difference between a general fund and the enterprise funds?
So the general fund is just that. It covers a wide variety of activities that the city does and receives tax dollars to pay for it. On the other hand, the enterprise funds, such as water, sewer, and sanitation, those are all expected to take care of themselves by fees that we charge the users.
So essentially, the general fund, we get tax revenue to satisfy.
Correct.
And then the enterprise funds are run, as Mr. Kennedy once pointed out to me, more like businesses that we charge our residents and customers for.
Correct. Those funds are not designed to receive tax dollars or anything like that. They have to stand on their own two legs.
So this tax budget is for those general funds as opposed to the enterprise funds.
That would be correct.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions, Mr. Hart?
Mr. Miller, first I want to apologize for not being able to get to you prior to the meeting. I just got back from Alaska at midnight last night, so that's why I didn't come to you earlier. Do you see anything in this budget that concerns you, or do you feel fairly confident in where we stand as a city right now?
I feel very confident, especially since the voters were very kind to us and passed the fire levy in May. That was something we had talked about in the past. That it had been a number of years since we had approved a levy to support our obligations to LSFD. So I think on there you will see, when you compare it to the last tax budget, there is an additional fund that reflects that levy that is passed. We have also updated the income tax revenue estimates that we got throughout 2020, 2021. We have been very conservative for obvious reasons. Things have started to turn around, so that is reflecting on there that we do not have any funds that are showing to go negative.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, Mr. Ori.
Just want to thank Mark for your time this morning. I had some questions as well, and he was very open and very available to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. We do need a motion to go up. Yes, Mr.
I did have one question. With regard to this particular budget, you mentioned that the actual budget comes later. Is this a budget that can be altered then at any point later, or so there's nothing in here that's locking in or that's required? It's an estimate, if you will, for the county.
Absolutely. This is definitely the 30,000 foot view of it. General estimates, and it does not include all of our funds, just those that are supported by tax dollars.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? We have a motion to open the public hearing.
Move to open the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
There is no one signed up to speak in the public hearing. So now we need a motion to close.
Move to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman, Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening we have a resolution that council voted to add. Thank you for doing that. This is a resolution that would allow the city manager to execute a contract for and approve documents with regard to securing Paycor for our payroll service for the city of Loveland. The resolution goes into detail about the anticipated annual cost. Just to summarize that, it's approximately $25 per employee per month, which equals about $1,500 per month billed to the city on a per month basis. Annual cost of about $18,785. There's some one-time setup fees. Total cost of about $21,584.50. Just looking at this, we've had some vacancies come up in the finance department. I would add, this is really an opportunity with bringing on an assistant finance director to maybe utilize that position differently, because the bulk of that time is dedicated to payroll. So this will allow us to be more efficient in that regard. And also Paycor does provide a host of products that can enhance the city's current timekeeping function, time manager, leave accruals, functionality for employees to be able to log their time cards on an as-you-go basis via either an app or a computer, and really just brings all of that, brings us sort of into the forefront, the 21st century here. Speaking from personal experience, I can tell you that I worked with Paycor previously in my prior position. We were very happy. We actually made a move from a very large payroll processor. I won't name them, to Paycor. Saved considerably, and they were very efficient and offered good value for what we were able to scale up to. So with that, I appreciate council's consideration.
Mr. Kennedy?
I would just add, because we're talking about budgets tonight, the budget that we will submit in November actually begins in July, and to put together a budget as extensive as the city's budget, an award-winning budget, is something that takes a considerable amount of time. And as we are all about succession and we're working hard, that was something that Councilmember Weisgerber always pushed. What we're trying to do also, and Corey touched on it, is we're trying to take the role of Assistant Finance Director, reduce the payroll portion of that position, and then make that person play a more active role in the team that creates this extensive budget of myself, Assistant City Manager Corey Wright, Finance Director Mark Medler, and this role. And we figure by pawning off or pushing off the payroll, reducing its impact, we feel that it's going to allow that person to take a more active role. It may make the position a tad bit more desirable. I commend City Council for the 7% increase on the upside of all the positions recently. That makes that a more desirable, more we are competing against a lot of communities. So that's really that was the nexus of why we decided to take this opportunity, with that positioning being vacated, to go ahead and move to Paycor. Mandy, who works up front with Dawn and Ann and all them, she'll take on a more active role as a sort of a liaison. She'll have the dashboard to a certain extent, and she's welcoming the opportunity to play a little more role with positions change and so on and so forth. Assistant Finance Director will oversee it, but the role will go from this much payroll to about this, and the role of the budget, which we really need because it is a lot of work, will go up. So that's sort of the goal. So, and Paycor was an obvious choice. LSFD uses them. We like that mix, and we think that was the best thing.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, we'll go ahead and read the resolution.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Paycor for employee payroll services.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Resolution 62 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
All right, read the next resolution, please.
Resolution adopting the 2023 tax budget.
Any further comment on that issue or the resolution? All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 63 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So, Chapter 15506 of the city's administrative code, or codified ordinances, regulates or dictates, or whatever the proper word is, for what the city observes as public holidays, as recognized holidays. And recently, we had some discussion when Juneteenth was just happened on June 20th, and it began some discussions internally about what would be, I think, the importance to recognize that holiday. I spoke to Mayor Bailey, who always gives me a tremendous amount of experience as far as some input, and we both thought it would be best to really relook how we handle city holidays, which is to use wording that a lot of communities use. We'll recognize all federal holidays, but we have a little bit of exceptions, and then we wrote that specifically. So where where we would, with the revised section of 15506, we would recognize all federal holidays. Any new federal holidays that come in would automatically, I won't have to come running back to council all the time. But we're also recognizing that the city staff who gets an input on these kind of things, we trade out President's Day, which is technically called Washington's birthday now, for Good Friday. Our staff recognizes Good Friday, and like they do at Hamilton County, we would also, in lieu of Columbus Day, employees really appreciate the day after Thanksgiving. So we're only adding one holiday, Juneteenth, which will be recognized from future years on. Councilmember Ping, and I got to say, from a staff standpoint, it is greatly appreciated how council members reach out to us in advance of meetings. It's really appreciated. Not so much it's that we get, but we can give you a better answer, and we're more prepared when you do that. So, Councilmember Ping pointed out, I did not put a fiscal impact, and technically there is a slight fiscal impact. Certainly, all holidays that the city adds automatically get added to our collective bargaining agreement. So there is, police get paid a little differently on holidays that will get time and a half for working what we will call a premium holiday. So that is a small fiscal impact. It's very, very minor. But whatever we do per our CBA, the police automatically get that holiday added to it. Correct, Kevin? That's so that there is a small fiscal impact for whoever's on duty that day will get paid a time and a half. But I appreciate him bringing that up because I just said no fiscal impact when really there was, minor as it is. So this would be just a first reading. The language is included as an exhibit, and it would we'll do the second reading in the next meeting.
All right. Anybody have any comment or questions?
So,
Yes, Mr.
so if Juneteenth, the 19th of June, falls on a Saturday or Sunday, we'll do the prior or the next Friday?
Also on Saturday, we get that Friday before.
The Friday
On
before.
Sunday, we get the Mondays.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Read the ordinance, please.
Ordinance amending Chapter 155.06 of the Loveland Code of Ordinances, Employment Provisions, Holidays.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy?
So, I jumped right. I'm sorry. We have a really unique circumstance here. The city has owned a parcel of land just beyond Walgreens on Kellogg. It's the easiest way for me to explain it. Kemper. Why did I say? I'm sorry. On Kemper. And I've known about it for a while. The city received it in 1996 for what I can see for $0. Okay. And I was going to get a report from Pat at some point. It's 2.295 acres of land. There's never been any reason for former administration or for the council to ever annex it in, even though it meets the connection laws as required by Ohio Vice Code, which is if this is a parcel, you measure all the total amount of the parcel and you must touch the city somewhere at 5%. We meet that across the street on Kemper. So why now do we want to annex this property? Because I think, and Mary Bailey and I have been talking about this for a while, when we did the community entertainment district on Love Madeira Road, let's just say, for all intents and purposes, West Loveland, Kroger's. We did that for obvious reasons. We did that to be in line with the plans of the comprehensive plan, and we see a lot of opportunities there. And I think it goes in line with us working on a complete makeover of Love Madeira Road. The whole thing about a community entertainment district, it takes in dollars and cents, it takes about a $30,000 trexing of a liquor license to $2,300. So it really is it's like a CRA, it's like a tax abatement. So we started in all of our discussions that we have all the time, the mayor and I, we talked about a lot of potential that lies on the city portion of Loveland Deer Road. I know the Todds and the Worlds know this, but it's sort of mishmash when you come off at 275. It's city is on the left from Starbucks up, crosses around Public Works. It's Sims Township on the right. We see a lot of opportunities. I realize Hertz is moving back in, but that is a wonderful site for a potential entertainment type of item. I'm not being deterred by the fact that they're moving back in. God love them, but that is a great site. It's a big footprint. There's actually an outlot there that there's been some thought about another location. Receptions remains basically empty. The city's liquor license are all done. We have no extra liquor license. So if you're going to do an entertainment district or anything, let's say a hotel. Let's say you do a hotel on that site. You're going to have a bar. You're going to want a liquor license. The difference is about 20 grand, 28 grand. So we see that as an opportunity. So one of the keys to having an entertainment, a CED, the way the city does them, is we must own property. That way, the city manager, as technically the landowner within the boundaries of the proposed CED, petitioned to the mayor. If you remember, I brought an application to the mayor. I said, here, I want to do a community entertainment district, and we can do it because we own land. Well, I don't think it behooves the city to have an entertainment district go across boundaries. I'm not going to sit here and say that it is by law. I think it just makes good sense that we annex the property into the city. So whenever we've done annexations in the past, and we've done a few, they always start with an annexation agreement. A lot of work is done in the background before it ever comes to council as you start doing the services to be provided and so on and so forth. This is a piece of land that will have no income ever. It is no impact to Sims Township. They don't see this as a bad thing. So there's no heartache in this. But I just don't really know how to initiate it. As the city manager, you can just run off and grab some city property. So I felt that it was best to come to council, ask for a motion to proceed. Everything will come back to council. It just allows me and Solicitor Joe Braun to move forward with this annexation, which will then means I'll come back with the annexation laws. I'll come back with the community entertainment district, and then we'll have that in place. So that's really pretty much it in a nutshell. It would be called community, whatever the liquor board decides to call it, but it may sit stagnant for a while. But what if it is a factor in putting something really neat in receptions? What if it is a factor if for other sites? Let's be honest, there's other rooms down there. So we see it as an economic development tool. Perfect example. I never was able to hit the car wash with Community Entertainment District 1 or Community Entertainment District 2, Johnny's Car Wash. For all those you know, that's being redeveloped into something that's really special. How much would it have been to them to save $20-something thousand in the liquor license that I know they had to Trex in? Johnny's Car Wash is getting completely rehabbed into a brewery type operation. It's really going to be something neat. Think about that as a key. So that was all. I was just looking for a simple motion authorizing me to proceed with the annexation.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, Vice Mayor?
The question for Mr. Kennedy, insofar as the red outline on page 34 of our packet, it looks like, does it include behind where Starbucks is a private residence?
No, that's a Duke power line.
Okay.
Duke substation. That's where I'm getting my 5% connectivity. But actually, that is city property up. City is 621. That property behind Walgreens actually touches city property almost its entire length. So we meet the 5% law. But my boundaries will never be a single family residence. That's actually a Duke substation. And then I went down. I certainly didn't want to include the daycare. So I used the boundaries of those properties. I used the property boundaries on there. So it would be most effective with, all of those sites have some potential. There is an outlot connected to, the Hertz lot that there was some discussion about that being developed in the future.
Okay. And the city-owned lot
is the one to the left.
Correct.
Go back to that first picture.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
And that's primarily a creek that goes through there, right? So that's why you say it's not going to be developed.
That's why it's never going to produce income.
Right.
There's no reparations. There's nothing we have to do. We'll do it as a type 2 because there will be we'll do a type 2 annexation versus a type 1 because there's no revenue to be received. I'm just using it as a cog to get the seat. And that's all we're using it. We're just using it for the purpose of being landowners inside of an entertainment district. That's all we're doing it for.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr.
That was I appreciate you illustrating that point because that was my question. That essentially the requirement for the community entertainment district is to own a parcel of land, and that's the reason why this annexation is tied to the community.
We'll never have anything on it.
Okay, that was just a little bit unclear, but I got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Ping?
So this, the community entertainment district, would it add another 10, or is it dependent on the size of the property?
It's dependent on the size. So I don't think it'll be 10. I haven't gone that far because I thought it'd be presumptive of me if you guys would have said no. It's probably only going to be 4, I believe. It's based on so many per size. Now you got some space in the back, and it's going to probably be 5 or 6, I would think. I need our city engineers to do a formal calculation of it and create the maps.
Thank you.
All right. Yes.
Just one more question. Since this is in Hamilton County, is there any different process to do the annexation between what we've done in Claremont and what we will need to do for Hamilton?
Except we get to use Joe because there's no issue regarding. We get to use Joe Braun. We don't have to farm it out to anybody. It's for so. Yep.
Anyone else? All right. So, Mr. Kennedy is looking for a motion authorizing him to take necessary actions to initiate the annexation of that city-owned property into the city's corporation boundaries.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to take necessary action to initiate annexation of city-owned property into city's corporate boundaries.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Belair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Carries 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So the city has been working with Claremont County engineers for a long time to replace the bridge over Bears Creek. That bridge just passed the nature preserve on East Loveland Avenue near the entrance is actually one of the few bridges inside a municipality that's still owned by a county. Typically, those have long since been passed off the responsibility. With that, the city, through the county engineer's office, is getting a brand new bridge through that process. We've applied for our portion of it. We're not funded. We will be applying again. With that, the Duke Energy is requesting that the gas main that has to be moved. You don't want it tied onto the bridge. That it will go into an area outside the right of way, all city-owned property, which is the 3 parcels, the front of the nature preserve. If you recall, we received that property in lieu of the fire tower, and then what is largely the frontage of the East Loveland Nature Preserve, and one more parcel owned by the city. That would all be directional drilling, meaning there will be trees disturbed, and orchestrating this project is very important because there will be a bridge closure. Anything we can do now in advance to reduce the bridge closure as long as possible is critical. So there's a bunch of utilities that need to be relocated in relation to this project. One of the other advantages is, which I commend Duke to do this, that is a very old aged gas main all the way up to 5th Street on that section. So they're going to replace all of it. The section that's being replaced outside of the shaded area on page 37 is all within the standard right of way. It needs no easements. We'll do that through standard permitting. All the other utilities that the city will be doing will all be done in the easement. This is the only one that stretches outside of the right-of-way, and an easement's needed. As required by 107.1 of the codified codes, I have to deem that property is no longer needed for municipal purposes to allow any specific use of it. Now, I have always stretched this a little bit, playing it ultra-conservative. So I do this for any easements, for anything that we do that has any impact on property. So I deem it as no longer needed because it's directional drilling. It is not going to be utilized for any other purpose. There's no other feasible use of the property, and what they're doing doesn't impact the city's ability to add sidewalks or do anything in the future. So with that, I'm simply asking for it also required for 107.01A that you set a public hearing and allow the public to input on what I'm proposing to do to grant the easement. So I have attached the wording for the public hearing, and I would request that it be on Tuesday, July 12th, 2022. On that night, we would do the first reading, we would do the second reading, and second meeting in July, and get this project moving. Quicker Duke can get started, all the better for everyone, including those people who live on the other side of the bridge, namely Mr. Bateman and a few other people, because it's not going to be pleasant. The fire department will be flying a truck over there. There's no easy way to take a bridge out. So we don't want to be the holdup. Oh, Duke would have done that gas line if he would have got the darn easement together. That's why we're trying to move this along.
Any questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
Mr. Kennedy, this is a permanent easement, not a temporary easement. And is there any consideration for this? Are we getting any money from Duke?
no, they would say they're helping us get our project done.
Yeah.
And their directional drilling is fine because, as those of you who know, there's all the trees in that area, none will be disturbed, and so they see them doing us a solid, sort of. But yeah, from that standpoint. So.
Any other comments, questions? All right, would someone care to make a motion?
Move to set a public hearing to review the granting of an easement on July 12, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Wright, you want to talk about C and D?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. This is the City of Loveland Planning and Zoning Commission. The first item I have for you is a notice of final action. So this is something we put together to sort of transmit per the requirements of the SPD regulations, the Planning and Zoning Commission's official action in that regard. So at the June 7th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission took action to favorably recommend for the initiation of this SPD for the Oak Street development as required by Part 11, Title 3, Chapter 151, Section 15102A to C of the Planning and Zoning Code. So the motion was adopted by a vote of 4-1, with Mr. Redmond, Mr. Bateman, Mr. Kressler, Mr. O'Neill voting for the adoption of the motion, and Mr. Weisgerber voting against its adoption. So this final action is required to be transmitted to the City Council within 30 days of the action, and so that action is before you this evening. I also provided a memorandum to Council, which is item D, there just explaining why we are not asking for a public hearing yet. And there are some specific requirements for an SPD that specifically 1151, 03, 04, and 05 that concept plans are required to meet. And there is no timeline for council to set that public hearing, only a timeline for the Planning and Zoning Commission to make their recommendation and forward that to council. So I think in this instance it makes sense given the amount of information. We've been back and forth with the applicant, sort of fine-tuning those plans, provided them with an initial plan review letter. I'm furnishing them, I'll be furnishing them another plan review letter based on those standards. And at such time, I would recommend that we delay setting a public hearing until such time that those plans are formalized and they contain really the bulk of those requirements so that council can set a public hearing on the project. So,
Thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Mr. Wright?
I'll just mention from my seat on the P&Z Commission is that I appreciate Mr. Wright's working with the applicant in the history of this project. It has taken a considerable amount of time coming before P&Z in a couple of different iterations, and so I think that taking the time to have the applicant put together all the necessary details is very prudent. And so thanks for explaining and giving us this option.
Any other comment or questions, Mr. Blair?
This all looks fine. I question why we're proposing an SPD. I think it brings up a sort of an overarching need for a revision or update of our zoning code, so that this kind of a development more easily slips into our process. I mean, the last revision of our zoning code was done when? Do you know?
I think it's sort of been piecemealed together over decades. And that was something, in fact, if I may, City Manager Kennedy and I both talked to the Planning and Zoning Commission about that when we considered the comprehensive plan and the need to, once a comprehensive plan is adopted, dovetail those recommendations into really a comprehensive rewrite of the zoning code.
So that's on the future agenda to do.
Percolating out there.
Okay, great. All right. I mean, this seems like it seems like an interesting project. The proposed units seem pretty cool. So, but I think we need. I think the less we need to use SPDs, and the more these kinds of units, these kinds of developments fit into our standard zoning, whatever that gets to become, the better. I appreciate you guys are working on it.
Vice Mayor?
The Mr. Wright, the additional items that the developer is supposed to provide, and that's contained in the bullets on your June 21st letter, Exhibit A.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at the end of the letter, it asks for them by June 24th. Obviously that's not applicable.
We try to put them. We had been working with them since the Planning and Zoning Commission's action. They had some people that were out of town. You know, it's a small shop that's working on it. Maybe my error was assuming that they'd be able to turn those around more quickly or were more further along. They were not. They're continuing to compile, and the goal there was to have formalized plans so that we could forward those. Obviously, we want to give them the most optimistic timeline so that, hey, they've got all their plans together. We're ready to schedule a public hearing to keep the project moving because of its favorable consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That said, they weren't able to provide plans that met those standards, and so therefore we would want to hold off in that. I feel like I would have been remiss if I provided them a communication that said, you have another 2 weeks. We're going to delay your project further before we talk about it. This way, we can present the Planning and Zoning Commission's action timely. We can assure compliance with established requirements and regulations, and then also work with them to make sure they have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed in that regard. So we try to give them the most optimistic timeline. Obviously, Friday is our packet day. We can try to get everything out to the council in a timely manner. So that is the reason for my deadline that I provided them on an administrative basis.
So is there a new deadline, or what's your expectation? When we'll have this?
The new deadline is, we're going to turn around the second set of plan review comments to them hopefully this week, and I hope they can get everything buttoned up. But at the end of the day, documentation of that is really upon them. And we don't really drive that timeline, they do. So when they've met all those standards and we've done our due diligence, I think then we can bring it back to council and recommend for a public hearing.
Is that a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day?
I would think that we're close. I would certainly hope so.
Thanks.
Any other comment or question? Okay.
Just in general about back to the SPD, the way that this property is laid out with, I believe it's 6 parcels on about 1.2 acres, which perhaps meets requirements because there is another vacant set of acreage that is going to be left with trees and so forth. But, it's an example, I think, of what zoning codes are supposed to protect against, which is shifting zoning away from an intended purpose and so forth. And I guess the thing that I'm getting at is, I don't know if this ties in with Councilman Blair's comment or not, but I guess a sense of urgency or I hesitate to use the word, but I'll use it anyway, desperation. Loveland used to be in a place where developers were begged to come here and offered all kinds of things to get them to come here. And we are now in a position where I think it's not quite 180 degrees, but it's getting that direction where we should be looking at developers and saying, hold on a second. Why do you want to change your zoning? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? We have citizens on that side of the river that are already complaining frequently to us in open forum about traffic issues and so forth. And so I think it's incumbent on us to ask the question when we're talking about changing zoning, especially for what I consider to be a fairly small parcel. This is more like spot zoning or something like that, and I may not be using the terms right because I'm new to all of this, but it just seems it seems like we have a parcel that we're almost saying, gosh, we got to do something to get somebody in here. And the reality is, I'm not so sure that that's a necessity. So, again, not that I'm saying that we can't do this or I'm against it or anything. It's just I think it is a discussion that is important that we have at some point about these kinds of things, because to me, this doesn't sound like it's rising to the level of what I would expect. And for those people that are located over there on Oak Street that are behind this, this is 6 townhouses, I think, that are going to be pushed into 1.2 acres. That's changing the nature of their community where they live. So anyway, I just wanted to, I guess, read that into the record for what it's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Ori.
This project has been lingering for years. It seems like, because I think it started off with 65 units. It was the first proposal, and then it was knocked down. Then it came back to 12 and 9, and I think now they're at 6. And I know the architect Rob Sabo has worked diligently with the neighborhood up there. So that, to answer your question there, no one spoke at P&Z about that because they're all on board. They like what's there. There's not going to be 65 units. There's going to be 6. Setbacks are decent. They're 10 feet shorter than what they should be, but there's still buffer room because the front of the property has a right-of-way. So the house is going to should be 35 feet off the right-of-way. These are going to be 25 feet. The backyard's supposed to be 30. These are going to be 20. But then there's also, I think it was 21 feet extra where they can add a patio or something on the back. So the building's going to be 41 feet away. And then they even worked it out where the first building, which would be the south building, is going to be 5 feet off the easement or off the property line. And it should be 15, but the neighbors are okay with it. So, like I said, no one spoke to P&Z in opposition to it. So I think the neighborhood's on board. One of the other things I noticed was that the unit is building 6 units on that 1.2, almost 1.3 acres, I think it is. It comes down to 0.25 acres per property. And some of the homes up there are built on quarter-acre lots. So the neighborhood's not in compliance with the zoning already. We've got a 12-unit building across the street on 3/4 of an acre. So I think it's a good SBD.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just chime in a little bit more onto that note. I think one of the points in favor of taking this into an SPD was the different zoning in that area, which Mr. Ori was referencing. And you can see on the document, you've got the historic district, which has no restrictions in zoning and medium density, and then multifamily across the street. So it's certainly an area where it's difficult to understand what kind of transition type of development might fit that parcel. And then furthermore, I think the path through an SPD does require a lot of give and take rather than trying to fit something that does work through existing zoning. In fact, taking the historic, they could have built, it probably would have been perhaps cost prohibitive, but they could have done a lot on that historic section of their parcel that was included in part of I think maybe some of the original plans. So I think that, we supported the initiation of this SPD, yet there was some discussion around it being relatively small. Spot zoning was a term used in the conversation for sure, but it also brought us to recognize the limitations of our own zoning code. Again, just like the comprehensive master plan conversation. So I think a lot of what we're debating is something that will be useful when we hear this in a upcoming public hearing, for sure. Something that we can at least provide guidance for staff and for the relative commissions as it comes to how we view these types of projects.
Mr. Hart?
Withholding judgment on a final until you get some more information. During the course of the comprehensive master plan conversation, the future land use maps we went through, at that time, Oak Street did come up, and one of the things that I spoke out against about there was high density housing on this area, and this seems to fit into high density housing close to downtown again. And we had a long conversation as a comprehensive master plan committee about the need for high density housing, and is that something that we want to be pushing? So I would encourage you to take a look at the comprehensive master plan that we're reviewing at the moment, and refer to those areas of that discussion.
Any other comment, Mr. Blair?
Just to respond to some, I'm glad to hear, Mr. Councilman Ori, that this project is looked at favorably by the residents. That's great, but and I appreciate Mr. Bateman's and Mr. Ping's contributions. We just, that's great, but let's not kick the can down the road on a comprehensive zoning review. If the zoning code that we have now was last reviewed, I'm going to say probably 1980, no later than that, then the city was a different city then. Mm-hmm. We all had a lot less gray hair then, and so it's a different city now. It has different comprehensive plan needs that we've taken a great deal of time to solicit and do research on. The next step should be a comprehensive review of the zoning code, so that we don't end up having this discussion about another SPD that we want to put someplace because it doesn't fit the zoning that we have. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. So we are taking no action on this tonight, is the recommendation. Okay. All right. Everyone okay with that? We'll move on. There are various committee minutes. Anybody have any comments on those? Last page in your agenda. I'm not sure if it was clear. These are a few committee appointments. So I'm asking that we appoint Councilman Neil Ori to take former Councilmember Tim Butler's seat on the Community Improvement Corporation. The rest all have to do with the Preservation Planning Commission. Basically, Dan Peterson and Jan Beller would switch with each other. Dan would become the main Loveland Museum Center representative, and Dan Beller would then be his alternate. Dale Horan, who is sitting here in the second row, recommending that he replace Neil Ori. Has to come off of the historic preservation because he was a seat at large versus a council member seat. So recommending Dale Horan fill Neil's partial term ending December 31st, 2023. And then the final recommendation, in what we voted on when we created this Historic Preservation Planning Commission, there was never a council member that had a seat on that commission. At some point early in the process, we added a sort of a council member liaison non-voting position. Because we were coming up with new regulations, we wanted to make sure it was all working well with sort of a liaison between planning and zoning and this. We now have everything in place. We've already got all the regulations. The Preservation Commission is up and running, ready to go. So really doesn't make much sense anymore to continue to have a council member sitting there with a non-voting role. So that was the current council member who sits in that position's recommendation as well. But
yeah,
not necessary.
That's correct. I think it was when the committee was when it was a committee and not a commission, and it was trying to figure out the process. It was useful to have somebody speaking on behalf of the council there. But I think that the group has really been kept intact in large part due to Mr. Kennedy, his leadership throughout the process, and I think that it's a really good group. Welcome Dale to the group. Looking forward to seeing this group again coalesce. A lot of great projects on the horizon for this. Oak Street included would be in the Historic Preservation District. So, yeah, I think this is the right choice. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve on that commission, and again, I think glad to see it evolve into the 3.0 version.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Someone care to make a motion consistent with the recommendation?
Move to accept the committee recommendations as made.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Payne,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. So I've been asked to give details on our Independence Day celebration, which will be next Monday, July 4th. As everyone knows, there's a full day of festivities on that day. From 4 to 6:30 at Nisbet Park is the Kid Zone. There will be lawn games from 4 to 9:30 at City Hall in Fountain Green, which is directly across. Food trucks will be around in Nisbet and also all throughout downtown Loveland from 4 to 10. The parade begins at 7 p.m. As always, leaves from the elementary school and heads down through the historic district. There's a concert from 8 to 10 in Nisbet Park. The band Colorblind will be performing at the amphitheater. Fireworks are at 10. And there will be parking shuttles from 4 to 11. And the locations will be Loveland High School and the Loveland Early Childhood Center. We do want to thank all of our event sponsors. We had a great response to that. So thank you very much to our business community. We are supported by numerous local businesses through sponsorships. We especially want to thank the 2022 fireworks sponsors, which include BF Realty, Brittany Fritsch Team, Driveway Dumpsters, Oasis Turf and Tree, and Wilbur Price Insurance Group. So thank you especially to them, but also everybody. And I think we'll have things around on that day that tell all of who our sponsors are. So please note those, because we couldn't do this without our sponsors. This is a fairly expensive event otherwise. So we are very much appreciative because it is a fun day for everyone. Does anybody have any other? Mr. Hart?
Just a piggyback on the LACC shuttle. People often forget that there is a ton of parking behind the school. Everybody just sees the parking lot out front. There's a ton of parking that's actually in the back of the school by the playgrounds. So
thank you.
Use those as well.
And Mr. Kennedy, you want to talk about the extra parking and also the bridge repair?
So we have been working for some time. All of you know where the Nature Preserve is, behind the Moose Building, as we call it. We have had a plan for a long time to systematically turn that into some overflow parking. That is floodway, not floodplain, so it's a great use for it. We're not taking up something that could be used for anything else. So what we did this year was we had the earth shaved down, and we've been filling it with all the shavings from the paving. I would estimate there's about 50 to 60 spaces. If you recall, the city ran sidewalks that connects that right into the downtown district. We added lighting. It's well lit back there. So if you don't mind walking basically 2 blocks, that is a great secret parking space for all of you guys. I really encourage you to use it. Another thing that we did was Corey and I went and met with the Hamilton County engineer on the bridge project. The bridge project's been delayed, really no ill by anyone. It's simply the issue with those sidewalks on the bridge are simply they're full of utilities, conduits. So to fix this project right, all the conduits are being ran underneath the bridge. That was a very extensive project that was delayed. Corey and I went and met with Mr. Beck, actually at the Hamilton County garage. That bridge is sort of unique. It's controlled by both Hamilton County and Claremont County engineers. And what we did was they were, to be honest with you, wanting to close that sidewalk down. For all of those you that know this, that would have really been an issue. Mad dashes across that speed trap would have really been an issue. So Corey and I sort of came up with an alternative idea, which is a temporary patch. We know it's not permanent. Hamilton County engineer, Claremont County engineer, and the city of Loveland all put a third in. And I encouraged them to be done before the 4th of July. Corey, who has a little more pull than me with these people, sort of demanded it be done. So that's why it's being done right now. So that's really going to improve passage. It is temporary. It wouldn't make it through the first freeze, but the project will be full steam by then. So you'll see that has gotten done to get that done before the 4th. So it's not pretty, but it's safe. And that's really all we wanted. And not to mention, they're not closing the bridge down now, because that really would have been is that Eric Beck's a wonderful guy. He just didn't grasp what we were saying. So I really thank Corey for being a little bit of the bully there. So we got that all project completed, and within both of those were done to be done by the 4th. If you get bored, take a little drive down to East Love Preserve. Not only look at what's completed, but get a grasp for how much more overflow. So I don't really see it being paved. I always see it sort of being a gravelly type of thing, but it's a great area. So running
All
out
right.
of time.
Mr. Ori.
I think we need to recognize and commend Mr. Medler for the award again for the budget preparation for 2022. 8 years in a row.
Mm.
So,
Congrats.
Well done. Don't be the one to break it.
No pressure.
All right. Anyone else?
Just a quick one. Sunday night was a concert in the park. I want to commend the city, Misty and Dave, for another good evening. It's the 3rd of 6, so we have 3 more. One in July, end of July, end of August, and then mid-September, I think, September 18th. It was a great vibe, good people down there, and they were maybe 7 songs into their set, and the rain came. But it was great for downtown restaurants because everybody scurried in and either was eating or getting a drink, and they came back out, and the band continued. So it was great. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Kennedy.
Last but not least, officially offered the job of police chief and got a press release today. To say this was drawn out, I understand, but it's actually Sue's fault because I got complacent because she's doing such a wonderful job. Our new police chief is Michael Gabrielson. He's currently the assistant chief of the city of Kettering. This was a long process, 3 interviews. I had individual lunch, dinner, breakfast with him, extensive background checks. And I really think we got the right person. He will be starting August 1st. Sue's going to be gone for a couple weeks. Sue's going to come back, be with us through July, and then help with the transition. And I want to thank Sue for the process, Corey. I put together a team. I picked a resident, a business owner, and a council member to help me with the process. Their input was extremely valuable. Mr. Phelps was on that committee. Rob Weisgerber helped me out, and so did Sue Allsbach, Sue Gertz. So I really think I made the right decision. I hope, and we're excited about this turn. We will also be hiring an assistant chief. We just offered a position for patrolman to Bolly Taylor. He'll be here getting sworn in. And we're actually also working with another officer who's currently finishing the academy. So this council is committed to 2 things that are in my world: the road work, and putting our police force with the numbers that police force needs, and that is present. We have another announcement that we'll have coming, but I need the school to take the lead on that. So just want to let everybody know, Michael will be coming in. I think you'll really appreciate it. He's got a great personality and a good experience. So,
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Someone care to make the motion to go to executive session?
I'll move to adjourn to executive session under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G3 to conference with counsel related to pending litigation.
For second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Pink?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
right, we are back at 8:37. Would someone care to make a motion to adjourn? Is
Move to adjourn.
there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Story.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mayor Bailey.
Yes.
Mr. Bateman.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Where do we hit that?